Alrighty, guys. Hello and welcome. So I'm here in VRC with 5 teleporting doorways. Basically, they move your character from a location to another. Um, and right now, you're only going to see 4 because the 5th one is actually bound to the keyboard. And I'm just going to go ahead and show how all of these work. So this first one right here, this green one, is a on interact doorway. So basically you click on it and boom, you're now in a new location. The next one here is another one I like to use as a on enter trigger looking at the player local level. So basically you can walk into it and you get teleported. That makes it really easy to set up specific layers so it only lets you through if certain things are going through it. The third doorway here in purple is a on avatar hit. So anytime the avatar itself, the collider for it, hits the capsule, it automatically teleports. Same as the enter trigger, but more specific. And then this last one here, you can't actually walk into it and you can't interact with it. And that's because you need this pickup object that I broke and didn't fix. And you actually have to put that object into the doorway here. And once you do that, you would teleport. And then the last teleport, which for some reason doesn't seem to be working, is if you hit the J key here in my world, it will teleport you back to that same location, same as these ones. So why don't we go ahead and jump over to Unity, where we will go ahead and take a look heavily into how I'm doing all of this. There we go. So now over here in Unity, you can already see there is a bunch of lines and a bunch of things going on here. And if you look up here in my hierarchy, you'll see that I have, again, 5 different doorways, each one having a different objective. Rename that one. Oopsie. Name this into Alright, so let's go through these one by one. First thing you're going to need is you're going to need a teleport location. This teleport location is at this point right here, slightly above the ground, I promise. So that way you don't get stuck when your avatar switches over. And we're going to go ahead with the first green doorway, which if you remember right is the on interact doorway. So basically I have advanced mode on, I have it set to local, that way only I affect it. Go back to local. And we're going to use the on interact feature. And we're going to have a use case of only 2. We're going to do the teleport player, and then we're going to specify that game object, that game location that you're going to be teleporting to. And for all of these last parts here, the teleport player and the game object that we're teleporting to, they're all going to be the same. It's just a different setup of the initials here. So going from the on interact, we're going to go then over to the on avatar hit. As you can see, we're going to be on avatar hit. Same exact thing, but different collider sorts. So each of these ones here all need to have their box colliders that are not triggered. The only one that needs that here is going to be the on enter trigger. And what this one does is it basically says this is now becoming a trigger with the collider. And the on enter trigger here is looking at specifically the player local level. And whenever that happens, you're going to teleport the player to this specific location. Very similar to the on avatar hit here. And then the on enter collider, we'll go over that one in a little more detail here, with the on enter collider looking for an object that collides with it to be on the pickup layer. So if I go up here to my top and I spec out here the layers as pickup, and then I look back over here at my trigger, it says it's looking specifically for that pickup layer. So if I walk into it, nothing happens. If I have somebody else walk into it with another object that's not on the pickup layer, nothing happens. It's only specifically keyed to a on pickup layer. So as soon as this coin here hits this, the player is teleported. The last and final one, which is very odd why it's not working. What I was checking out is on key up and on key down triggers. So basically, those will take your keyboard input controls. So as you can see, this object is right here. There's nothing in it except for a trigger. And what that will do is it'll basically say, oh, that might be why. We're going to look for whenever you let up on the key L. And once you do that, then you're going to teleport the player to the game object. So there's many different forms and ways of setting this up. And as such, we're going to go ahead and go over to this spot right over here. And we're going to create a new set of teleports. So we're going to go ahead and create an empty. We're going to call this TP new. And in here, we're going to go ahead and create an empty game object, which is going to be our TP location. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a object that we can interact with. So I'm going to go to the simple cube here. I forgot to zero these out. So just do a quick scaling of this. I'd like to make a nice formal doorway. Alright, so you've got a object with a collider on it. You've got a teleporting location. Let's go ahead and set up the VRC trigger. So what you're wanting to do is go down to your triggers, and we're going to set up to advanced mode. I don't need the help. If you want to leave the help on, that's okay. We are then going to find, which one do we want to do? Let's see if on key down works. And we're going to set this to local only. We're going to set this to the space key. We're going to go through and do a basic event of teleport player. Apparently that UI does not show up. Wonderful. And then we're going to find our receiver. We're going to go ahead and take the teleport location and drop it in. So let's go ahead and find this location. Ready? Drop it over this way, making sure we don't accidentally put it somewhere we don't want to. So we now have that, and then we're actually going to go ahead and set up a second trigger on this, which is going to be an on timer. So this one, an on timer, basically says you can do many things with this. I'm going to change this to a local so that nobody else activates. You have a repeat function, which basically says when any time between the high and low period. So you can set this to 3 as the low and 5 for the high. So it basically means this timer will randomize a point between 3 seconds and 5 seconds, which I'm going to change that to 20 and 15. And what it's going to do is between 15 and 20 seconds, it's going to randomly fire off this action, which is the teleport. And that is with the repeat. So it's going to keep doing that over and over and over and over and over again. The reset on enable means that if this object is ever turned off and this trigger goes off for whatever reason, when it is turned back on, this entire object is turned back on, the timer will start again. Otherwise, once the timer starts, if this is not checked, it will then start at whatever time it was currently at. So let's say these are at, let's say, 300 and 300. So basically at exactly 300 seconds, this thing will fire off. and this is not checked, and let's say you turn this object off for a little bit, and then you turn it back on. When you turn it back on, whatever time it already elapsed in the timer would then start from that position and keep counting until it got to the 300. But that is a fun one to work with. The next one I will take a look at is, why don't we do an on pickup. So if I remember this one correctly, we're actually going to have to take this one off, because that needs to go into an object, which we'll go ahead and steal this guy. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and add a component of the VRC trigger. Go ahead and do an on pickup command. Turn on advanced mode. We're going to add this. Set this to all local. And then we're going to go ahead and do a teleport. Pretty simple at this point. So far in my testing, I have not found any difference here in the true, false, or toggle for world orientation. So you probably do not have to worry about that. Anyway, here, while that's loading, let's go ahead and build and publish this, and we'll go ahead and test. Make sure that this doorway with its on key down of space, and then we're actually going to go ahead and do a quick on enter trigger. We're going to change the box collider here to is triggered, so that you can walk through it. Go back down to the on enter trigger here, set it to local, make it look at the player local level, and the teleport is already there. Just make sure everything's ready to go. Let's go ahead and publish this. It's now up and ready to go. So if I go back into VRChat here and switch this over, go ahead and rejoin this world. Forcing us to re-download it. Come over here and look. So, of course, the pickup script does not work. Yay. So this should be an on enter trigger. We enter into it, and now we're in a different location. Let's see if space works. Yes, space does work. So this on key down, basically when you press down the space bar, you instantly teleport no matter what. And then of course I can just keep running back and forth because I put the location in a bad spot. But I can just go ahead and run off his edge here, get super far away, and then spacebar. Oh, and look where I am. I'm back here at the teleport location instead of spawn. Anyway, I hope that gave you guys ideas on what you could possibly do here with the teleport triggers. Wanted to thank IronDawn for giving me the idea. I will go. Anyway, I thank you for coming, and see you next time.